So moving on to that topic, what's the word? Segue from there. You just said if Man United could have a striker like that. I have a question for you. Will Marcus Rashford ever be a 20 Premier League goal a season striker?
Well, it's a great comment, great subject to talk about. I mean, I think probably not. And I know it sounds a bit negative, but I just don't think that's necessarily his best position. From what we've seen from him, what Ollie's trying to do while Ollie's been at the club, I think Marcus Rashford has benefited from being played out wide. I think he does have the ability to beat people and pass, and has got good vision and things like that. Not to say he can't score goals, but is he that lethal Ruud van Nistelrooy or that lethal Michael Owen, Fox in the box type player? I don't think he is. I think he is very good, but he's shown recently he doesn't quite have that cutting edge in front of goal. Now, it could just be a dip in form, absolutely, and he has been playing out wide. If you're going to put him into the centre role, maybe you can't expect him to just perform straight away in the first game that you do that, as he has been playing out there for a while. But Laird have trained all week. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is one of the most sort of natural type finisher strikers, if you like, where he just reads the game brilliantly. It's not necessarily about a physical thing with him. It's just about he was intelligent. He was in the right place, the right time a lot of the time. Not to say he couldn't make time a great run and had great movement, but also he just had that intelligence to read a game, which I don't think Marcus Rashford has to the same level. I think Anthony Martial does have that. I think he's got that to a greater extent and just more finishing ability. But Rashford, for me, his best position is out wide with Martial inside. That's what I think. I mean, it's a tough one. Only time will tell. I just don't think he's ever going to score 20+ goals for us.
Yeah, I want to bring it up because it's very interesting because there's a lot of parallels and a lot of contradictions with Marcus Rashford. Just bringing in Anthony Martial. Right now, yeah, I think you're right. I think Martial is the number 9 and Rashford is the number 11. Makes most sense from what I've seen right now. But if you think about when a few years ago when they were brought into the team, Martial was your left winger cutting inside, and Rashford was that boy that in his first 2 games scored 4 goals in 2 games, all in the box, all from crosses, all done that. Now
he looked like an actual striker then. You're right.
I've seen Marcus Rashford even in his young career ruin defenders' careers. Who was that City centre back who had a torrid time? He never played for City again after him, and he was a season, and he was only like 29, 30. I can't think of his name, but
No, I can't remember.
I don't know. Rashford was crucifying him. The worrying thing to me was so Rashford's movement is very good. Now, I'm not talking about in the box. So off the shoulder of defenders, his movement is just really brilliant. He's beyond athletic. He's skillful. He's got it all, right? But he's got it all. But there's that little thing here. And I saw Daniel James sometime put in early balls a couple of times, and you're right. Ruud van Nistelrooy would have been on them, would have read it, would have gambled. Not even gambled. It's not even about gambling. He would have read the situation. He was taking a step towards goal, and he would have had a shot on goal. Probably.
He would have reacted a little bit quick because he read the game a bit more intelligently. Yeah.
The reaction there, he doesn't have that reaction. It doesn't seem like he has that reaction, which a number 9 needs in the box. And some of that is natural as well. I know we can talk all day about being taught and this and that, but some of it is just predatory. Just instinct. And
look at Michael Owen. I mean, at 17, he was as good as anyone at sticking the ball in the back of the net. So you can't coach a 17-year-old. He hasn't had all the experience of a career of a 29-year-old. So that goes to show you. I mean, his best years were when he was young.
United have had great teams without them players. I mean, we won the Champions League with Rooney up top, right? Or with Rooney, Tevez, and none of them was Ronaldo is now. He's changed his game a little bit, but you can't even include him in these conversations.
Yeah, they weren't that Ruud van Nistelrooy type Fox in the box player. No, I hear you. Or that Gary Lineker or somebody like that. Yeah.
But the way Ollie's playing now, you almost need that. So right now, it's looking like Rashford should be out, and I think that the young lad should get a looking because he looks like from the preseason games I saw, he does look like that player that will just take that step forward. A lot of them just are on their heel when he would be on their toes. And I know it sounds very simple, but it's so massive for a number 9 to be able to do that. And honestly, Rashford should have had a hat-trick in that game against Southampton. He didn't even get close to any of them crosses that were coming in or the ricocheting around or whatever it was. He was just on his heels the whole time. Doesn't have that reaction ability, can't read them situations. Like I said, his movement off the shoulder of defenders is fantastic. He'd be be fine in a front two maybe, but United won't be. It's very hard to play that way in the modern game. It really is with the systems you're coming up against. So yeah, right now he's on the left, but it's quite kind of sad because he has everything but that. If he had that, he'd be frightening. He'd be more your. He'd be scoring. Him and Harry Kane would be golden boot. I mean, he has a lot more to him to me than Harry Kane does. Harry Kane is technically unbelievable. He reads the game well, brilliant. But Harry Kane has exactly what Rashford doesn't have, right?
That's his strength, yeah.
Yeah, if you're talking about athleticism, if you're talking about skill,
he reads the game so well.
There's different points of skill. I mean, dribbling isn't just skill. I mean, taking the ball out of the air is skill. The time it's got is skill. The time, but Harry Kane is so good in a lot of intangible areas. I mean, unbelievable. And I'm not saying Rashford is a better number 9 than Harry Kane.
He doesn't read the game as well as Harry Kane. There's no doubt about it in my mind. It's like, consider people. There's players that Man United have had over the years that were amazing for us who didn't have the most physicality or they weren't the quickest. People like Solskjaer or people like Sheringham. Sheringham, Sheringham gets himself in the right position. Yeah. Sheringham reads the game greatly. Yeah. He can see the runs of his teammates, and not to say that Marcus Rashford can't, but I just think that killer instinct, that ability to just get the read on the defender a little bit earlier, sort of sense the ball's coming in there to make the movement. I think he's just that split second behind some of those players that we talked about there. And I know Sheringham was more of a deeper player, but I'm just saying, he wasn't quick. He was just intelligent, and he found the right spaces. Same with Ruud van Nistelrooy. There's lots of players, but yeah, I mean, I think Marcus Rashford's best position lies out wide for those reasons. He doesn't have that cutting edge in front of goal. He doesn't have that.
I agree. And now, as weird as it sounds, I think Rashford is more likely to score 20 goals in the Premier League from the left than actually being the centre forward. Because from the left, he's going to be in the game more. He'll be able to run at people more. He'll be able to work off the shoulder.
Well, look at Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling, a few years ago, when Man City signed Raheem Sterling for 56 million or whatever, I think I made a video on my channel. Anybody wants to check that out and laugh at me and being what an absolute mug I was. Because I was like, that's a ridiculous amount of money paid for that headless chicken of a footballer. And that's what he was at the time, though. When he was at Liverpool, yeah, he was good. He could beat a man and he could score goals from wide positions. But his final product wasn't great, and he was somewhat of a headless chicken to me.
Yeah.
The work that Pep Guardiola's done with him, I mean, now he's a true wide player, true goal scorer, almost like an inside forward at times as well. So he can get past people and he can whip a ball in, but he can also just cause absolute havoc, taking players on and slotting in the back of the net himself or getting it across the 6-yard box. That is the role that I see Marcus Rashford doing for United. And that's the similar future I can see for him. Not to say that he's not intelligent, and I'm not calling Rashford a headless chicken, but I'm just saying there's fractions in this game, fractions at the highest level, and they can make a big difference. That's what separates a player like Ruud van Nistelrooy, who for some reason, it seems like he's not considered as one of the best around, who's ever played. To me, Ruud van Nistelrooy, in terms of just an absolute goal scorer, in terms of just being able to read the game, a poacher, finisher, whatever you want to call it, there's nobody better in the game than him. Whether it's Fat Ronaldo or whoever. Maybe as an overall player, obviously, but if you're talking about just that role, Rashford's never going to be anywhere close to that anyway, is what I'm saying. So I just think now would be the time to give him that nod in the wide position and give Mason Greenwood the opportunity to step up in there if Martial's not fit. We've got Greenwood there. You're absolutely right. In pre-season, he looked really good. Scored a fantastic goal. Showed intelligence. Totally did a defender. Spurs' defender, I think it was, one of them, and just mugged him off. Yep. He looks like he has all the capabilities to be that intelligent striker, but he's only 17.
Well, yeah.
I'm disappointed with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not selecting him yet. I am. I mean, I do think he's had a mare there.
Like I said, I think he's gonna, he's got to be careful, and I think he maybe is regretting not selecting him if you ask him now. But just with Rashford, just a couple of final thoughts. You say it's fractions at the top level, it is, but then fractions and that being on the toes instead of the heels and this and that, and reading them balls coming in and reacting quickly. They may be fractions, but he looks miles off them fractions. You know what I mean? He looks a long way off there. And also, I worry about him a little bit because you mentioned Sterling, so I'll just go with this. You got Kane, you got Sterling, you got Sancho. I'm missing someone there in the England team. I mean, all of a sudden, England have an embarrassment of riches up top there. I mean, that is unbelievable. When you look at how Sancho's playing, you look at Harry Kane when Harry Kane's on and fit. You look at Sterling. I mean, for Rashford to get in there now is a bit of a job for him. And England are really progressing. I mean, you think a couple of years ago, Ali was, a dead cert for the team. I don't think Ali's getting close to being in the real strongest 11 right now, is he? Really?
Not really. He's been shite for a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just coming in. So I mean, yeah.
The one thing Marcus Rashford does have on his side, though, is he's still young. And if you do compare the goals and the careers up until this point for a Manchester United player at his age, he's doing pretty well. It's not like he's not doing well. He's doing very well. The
Right.
problem that United have is that the Glazers, we don't have the depth and all that stuff there. That is why it's more highlighted right now. Gary Neville, I think it was Gary Neville, said something a couple of weeks ago that I completely agree with, which is, there's too much emphasis on Rashford and Martial and players like this now. There should be that experience, 29-year-old world-class striker at United, like a Van der Sar, banging in the goals, and then you bring in these younger players through. They're playing sort of, the second fiddle, if you like, until they're getting that experience, until they're getting that game time. Particularly people like Mason Greenwood. I mean, if you think about United's situation right now, it's kind of laughable that the 17-year-old that's never really played at the top four United is actually our first backup at striker.
Trying for, yeah. And just on that point as well, like you're saying, Man United's team is very young and everyone's loving that, right? We're always about the youth and give youth a chance and this. But Man United's teams all the time with Ferguson always had the blend, and they always had that Cantona or Keane or, like you said, Van Nistelrooy, or they had these seasons, the Vidic's, the Stams, the Ferdinands, the Irwins, we could go on and on.
World-class players,
always had a blend of youth and experience. And really, when you're looking at United now, our experience, our spine of experience is De Gea, Maguire, and Pogba. Them more should be the middle of the rung. You should have more 3 or 4 kids. They should be the middle of the pack, and you should have a few senior players. And that's what Manchester United are really missing. However, they need to become them senior players. And you know what I mean? It takes time, it takes transition. But the problem is we don't give time now. If we struggle after the international break, before we even hit November, people are going to be saying, is Ollie the right man? Blah, blah. They're already saying it, So it's a real problem. But it feeds back into the whole issues. But if Man United would have won the 4 games like they could have and maybe should have in a way, I mean, results and result in a day, then we wouldn't be saying any of this, and probably we wouldn't be highlighting Rashford or talking about.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I just thought of though is that Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, players like this who we signed and we've had for a few years, and they've come along, they've looked really good at times, and they looked good when they were young. So I just said, if you compare Marcus Rashford to other players at this age at Manchester United, he's actually doing pretty well. But at the same time, though, hang on, at the same time, like, I have to say, like, from 3 years ago, or when Louis van Gaal put him in that team and he scored those goals, and then he got the nod that season, and he scored a bunch more goals, and he carried on. And look at the performance he put in the other day, where he doesn't look like he's got that intelligence and in that striker role. Like, that is a major concern for me, because I thought Martial and Rashford would be much further along than they actually are. I know they're not doing terribly; they're still young players, but they have halted their progression somewhat over the last year, particularly Rashford. If you look at his performances this season,
it's not been the easiest environment to progress in, and I don't think Mourinho really is fantastic at developing players like that. I think Mourinho's taken players like Terry and Lampard, I'm just going to use them, and he's taken them from one level to another, and I think Mourinho is very good at that. But when you're developing a young player from start to finish, I mean, all the names that he had. Obviously, Mourinho has an eye for talent. He's an incredibly smart coach, great manager. I mean, I think we all agree that, even though Man United was a bit of a debacle, I think we always agree that he should have never been Manchester United manager. It was doomed before it even started. But I mean, their development hasn't been great, and I hope that Ollie can help them. But I just wonder if Ollie's barking up the wrong tree there, because he wants them to be poachers, Martial and Rashford. I don't know if that's in their game, and I think that's why Daniel James is doing so well. He's playing freely. He hasn't got. Ollie's probably just go on and have a laugh.